Before our founding fathers got together, most people believed in the divine right of kings. You know, the idea that God gave power to the king, and then the king says, you don't have that right anymore. This is what made America unique. It was founded on divine providence. You remember the words endowed by their creator in the Declaration of Independence. That was, pardon the pun here, a revolutionary concept at the time. And it meant that God actually had a hand in the world's greatest experiment, in our democracy. He gave little babies the rights. That's what our founders believed. Whether they believed in organized religion or not is beside the point. Each of them abided by the laws of morality and nature's God, which is why they put that term in the very first line of the Declaration of Independence. A lot of people say, they weren't Christian, they didn't believe in God. Really? Listen to how Ben Franklin described the religion of America. Quote, I believe in one God, the creator of that universe, that he governs it by his providence, that he ought to be worshipped, that the most acceptable service we render to him is doing good to his other children, that the soul of man is immortal and will be treated with justice in another life, respecting its conduct in this. Well, which one of us can't agree with that? I believe this is the true secret. It is what George Washington talked about. It is the reason we're a success, and it will be the reason, if we lose it, that we fail. It is the belief that our rights are given to us by God, and then we lend them out to our government. Only enough of those rights so they can protect the rights to life, liberty, while we pursue happiness. Unfortunately, we're moving in the opposite direction. We move towards a socialist state. We move to a gigantic government. They've moved from a renter of our rights to an outright owner, or they believe, I think, a creator of those rights. That's what's causing us to lose sight of who the real owner is. Our creator, and he gives them to us. A new poll now says 15% of us have absolutely no religious belief. How can that be in this country? That number has doubled since 1990. So, what's the solution? How do we stop this surge in people putting their elected leaders above their creator? It's actually, I think, simple. It's the golden rule. Just do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Principle number 2, and we're going to talk about all these on Friday's episode. It says that you not only believe in God, but that He's the center of your life. That's basically the golden rule. Prove it. Prove it, live it, not by telling everybody else what principles and values. Oh, you've got to live by these principles and values. Just live them yourself, and we will change America. Only then can our country survive the attack on God. And Catholics today gathered in the state capitol in Connecticut to protect their rights as Americans to freedom of religion. The rally came one day after lawmakers in the state shelved a bill. So they didn't cancel it. They just put it up there on the shelf. Gee, I wonder if they'll take that out in the middle of the night. They proposed to take control of the Catholic Church and their financing. This is not a story just in Connecticut. This is not a story just about Catholics. It's a story about God and an attempt attack on religion and our Constitution. Yeah. You know what, I tell you, most people in America believe in God, but they don't. They disagree. They get caught up in arguing about theology, and we can't do that anymore because we're all under attack.
Well, the attack in this particular case is not coming from non-Catholics. You're talking about two guys who are angry at the Catholic Church because the Catholic Church is against two men getting married. And that's what this whole thing is about. They said that we're going to have the government, the state of Connecticut will come in and we'll take care of the churches. No role for the priests, no role for the bishops. We're going to take over the church. This is driven by Voice of the Faithful. This is a dissident left-wing Catholic group. Them and their friends at the National Catholic Reporter wanted to do this. Now, just for a moment, consider this. Could you imagine the bishops in the state of Connecticut coming together and saying, you know what? You have fiscal improprieties going on in the state. You have incompetence in the state government in Connecticut. We bishops are now going to take over the state legislature. You would hear howls of protest screaming about inquisitions, violation of church and state. This kind of fascistic movement, and I choose my words carefully, this is a fascistic stunt here on the part of Lawler and McDonald to get payback against the Catholic Church because they don't like that the Catholic Church doesn't like Tom, Dick, and Harry getting married.
Okay, hang on just a second. First of all, may I? Prescription M&M.
I think if he's on a sugar jag, I think we're all in danger.
Chocolate soothes me.
You do not want him more wound up.
Rabbi, please do the necessary counseling.
Oh, my goodness.
Professor George, you said to me yesterday on my radio program the same thing, but you said it's not just the Catholics. You say because of what happened in California with Proposition 8, that all of them are going down.
Well, Proposition 8 restored the conjugal conception of marriage as the union of a man and a woman in California. That had been disturbed by a California State Supreme Court ruling, which essentially redefined marriage on the basis of what constitutional principle I know not. But as a result of that, the more radical forces, not everybody, but the more radical forces who were opposed to Proposition 8 have decided to retaliate against those institutions, especially those churches and religious communities that support the conjugal conception of marriage as a man and a woman. It began with, not with Catholics, but with retaliation against the Mormon community, the LDS community, Latter-day Saints community, where churches were actually invaded. There were rough tactics used by people who came into the churches and started disrupting religious ceremonies, but now it's also happening with retaliation against Catholics, against evangelical Christians, against others.
They made a list on websites of everybody who donated, and if you were LDS, your name was highlighted in red. Rabbi, does that sound familiar to you?
Right.
You know, it's always going to happen. You're going to disagree, and they're going to disagree with you, and that's fine. You live with that. You have differences. But what's happening now is you're not allowed to have your point of view because you're in your religion. They'll do everything they can to shut you down.
I think that's true, and this was where I probably would disagree with Rabbi just a little bit here. The assault is coming from the secularists. I don't see much from the side of religious conservatives. For example, when you have colleges in California where a student goes in and prays for her professor who's ill, and the professor doesn't object, but another professor objects, and then that student is told you're going to be expelled the next time that you pray on the campus. Or at Yuba City College in California, when I was in the Air Force, I attended that school. There are free speech zones on the campus where you're allowed to talk about religion. I don't see religious colleges intimidating people who are not religious. I see secular universities, and sometimes religious ones too, intimidating people of faith.
It's on both sides. Let me show you some video. This came from England. This is a welcome home parade for the troops over in England coming home from the Middle East. There are people demonstrating there and saying, you know, rah, rah, welcome home. And then you have the police guarding these radical Islamicists over there that are calling the soldiers pigs and Nazis and baby killers and everything else. They have the right to say that. However, the people who say, pipe down, Mr. Muslim extremist, are arrested. This is what's happening in America as well. Not necessarily on this level, but it's coming, where you have one opinion and you're shut out. You have the politically correct or powerful position, you're okay. So let me ask you this question, and I think this is the main point here that I'm trying to get to. I believe, just as we are, men of different faith, we need to come together, and people that believe in God need to put their differences aside and stand up and start saying, you know what, I'm not ashamed that I'm a religious person. I'm not ashamed that I go to synagogue on Saturday or I go to church on Sunday. It's okay. And if you don't like my principles, that's okay too. You have a right to answer to God in your way, and I'll answer to God in my way, as long as we're not hurting one another. But we've got to stop feasting on each other because religion is under attack.
When you have a Mormon out in California, and was in the New York Times, exposed this story, and he's in the autistic community, and they found out that he was in favor of Proposition 8, he was blacklisted by the gay community there and supported by the liberal left newspapers. I'm telling you, the intimidation on the part of these aggressive secularists is absolutely incredible. And it's in the autistic community, it's in education. I see it, the stuff that crosses my desk every day. These people are bullies and they need to be defeated.
We have a lack of trust. You can talk about liquidity and all the other problems, but we have a lack of trust. And George Washington, correct me if I'm wrong, said that unless we have religious and moral principles that we live by, this thing ain't going to work. And we're seeing it now. As those things start to shimmy apart, we fall apart.